Hey everyone, it's Ellen. Welcome to my channel. Today's Friday, and what do we do on Friday? We have Floral Friday, so we're going to paint some florals. Although today we're going to do something different. We're going to do some gouache florals. Yep, going back to gouache. I'm going to show you a technique that I use for gouache that's kind of fun and different, using acrylic gouache and regular gouache, and explain the differences and why I use this. If you've never used gouache before, this is a great way to try and play with it. And you don't need many colors to create something like this. I mean, I talk about this in the video. If you don't have all the colors, you just need like maybe 4 or 5. So we're going to have a lot of fun playing with paint, moving it around, all that kind of fun stuff. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. If also check out my Patreon. I have ad-free videos, traceables, exclusive tutorials, and a live stream in the top tier. It's just a place people go and support my channel, which I appreciate so much. So without further ado, let's get painting with some gouache today and have some fun. All right, so I'm going to go with some supplies. I'm going to start with some paper. I'm just going to be using Strathmore cotton. It's not necessary to use Strathmore cotton. You can use a Strathmore, this is where you use an inexpensive paper. You can use a vellum. I don't actually have any vellum, so I'm using this one. But it's more of a smooth surface. So you don't use expensive watercolor paper for this particular exercise. I'm using actually a paper palette. See, you can use this for acrylics and gouache and paper towel, and I'm just started off using a 1-inch craft brush, but I'm going to go into other brushes as we go through the tutorial, and I'll talk about what I'm using then. But right now I'm using, so there's 2 types of gouaches. There's acrylic gouache, and then there's just water soluble gouache. And so acrylic gouache is kind of similar to acrylic paint. You know, it's going to be dry, it's going to be permanent. You can't reactivate it with water, whereas the other kind of gouache, the water soluble, you can reactivate it. So I'm going to be using acrylic gouache first for one reason, and I'm going to show you. I'm just going to grab some black paint. So I like to paint acrylic paintings. I like to put black, you know, well, not in my palette knife paintings, but my regular paintings. I was taught to put black paint down first, because then the colors on top of that will really shine, will really just pop up intensely, as opposed to on white. So this is what I want to do with gouache. And the reason why I'm going to paint with acrylic gouache, unlike the water-based gouache with the first coat down here, is because, like I said, when you use water-based, any kind of water on top of it is going to reactivate it. So if you wanted to paint on top of it, you can reactivate it if you have a kind of a really wet piece of, like, not piece, but really wet swatch of water-based gouache. So in order for that not to happen, the color that goes down first, just like the flat color you want to paint over, would be acrylic gouache. So that's why I am using acrylic gouache first, and then going back over with water-based gouache. So I'm just doing a simple rectangle here, just using a craft brush. I'm not going to be too, you know, super detailed oriented. If you want to use tape, you can use tape, but I'm just going to put this down. And then I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to go over it with our gouache. We're going to be painting some kind of fun, simplistic fall flowers. All right, so I'm going to let this dry. We'll come back and we'll talk about the other gouache. All right, now that it's dry, I'm going to play around with some colors. I'm just throwing colors on my palette here. I have yellow deep, brilliant orange, carmine, magenta, ultramarine deep, cadmium green deep, cadmium green pale, and burnt umber. I'll have them in the description box. And then this is where you use some, so say you have watercolor brushes that are kind of worn a bit. I have some old ones that are here that are worn. These are some Princeton brushes that are older from the Elite series, number 8s. And I don't know what this is. But it does do some wear and tear on your watercolor brushes. So either use cheaper brushes. You know, if you're going to be painting fine gouache, then obviously use a nice brush, and you just got to go through it. But just you know, this is what you can use with your worn out brushes. And you don't need all these colors. I would suggest getting a yellow, a good blue, a cobalt blue, and a magenta. And those 3 colors alone could make various colors for this particular tutorial. So we're just going to think of really simple shapes. I'm just going to grab just a simple, I don't even know what this is. Doesn't even say. A number 4 type round brush. So also I have a little trick that I use. I'm not going to be able to use much of this because I don't have much white gouache. I kind of put some white gouache in all my colors. My white gouache is a little bit dry. So that's my reasoning. I had to open the bottom, not this part because it's so dried up here. So I just cut this open and I'll just fold it back. I'll squeeze some out and I'll just fold it back. And hopefully that will stay and not dry out. So that's the reasoning why I do that. So here I have the yellow, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm just putting a little bit of water to activate it, not too much. So say I do a simple yellow flower, just putting the line. See how you can see that black coming through? Just simple lines like this. Boom, boom, boom. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of that white and also less water. It's not working. What's going on here? Okay. Well, I might have to do another pass. It really makes it kind of more opaque, but there we go. Really less water. Just enough to move the paint. See that? It makes it more opaque. So I'm just doing a simple flower like that. And you see how it really just pops on that black? And actually, I don't mind keeping the black. We're going to be doing a lot of fall kind of flowers. So you're just taking this brush and just making a movement like this. This is actually where I'm doing a flower. Remember I talked about not doing the flowers straight on? I don't mind it here so much. I might shorten some of the petals here to make it a little bit more realistic. And this is not like a super, I keep getting gouache on my arm, fancy brush. So it's a little loose and goosey, as I would call it. I'll just have to kind of go over it another time, another pass. Kind of like similar with watercolors. Sometimes you have to do another pass to get it darker. And here you do the opposite, just want to make it more opaque. So I'll put a yellow color down. And think of fall colors, right? We have orange. And see, here's the orange. We'll try an orange flower here without a little white. You can still see the black coming through. Let's try a little bit of white. Much more opaque. I'm just doing a simple, see? Almost like a V, almost like a tulip. Do like a little cluster like that. And you kind of want to spread what you're doing here around somewhere else. And sometimes people say, why did you start with flowers first and not stems? And I'm getting paint all over me. You guys can see my arms. It's ridiculous. I do both sometimes. I like to place the color first. Now it is kind of shining through a little bit. I might have to do another pass on some of these. There. And then I'll make some green. Now I have these green colors already. They're just kind of fine the way they are, but if you wanted to make it more of a less springy, more fall harvest, I'll take this green. This is cadmium green pale. I can add a little orange to that. See, now we already have more olivey type green. And you just do some simple stems. Connect them. So this brush is not so great for watercolor anymore, but it's pretty perfect for gouache. And maybe add some leaves. And, you know, by the way, don't make everything stay inside the square. I mean, the rectangle. Have it come out. See how I'm doing this? Coming out. It makes for a more interesting, I'm going to add some more of these up here and add some leaves. It makes for a more interesting design. And just kind of connecting here. So when you think about composition, there's so many different variables. So you do have a center design here with this big rectangular square. I mean, it's a rectangular square, and that makes no sense. I'm sorry, rectangle. I had the deepest, like craziest dream, and I overslept today, but I haven't been sleeping well because this full moon tomorrow. So excuse my brain of just not thinking clearly. See, I'm putting some more leaves. I'm going outside the rectangle. By the way, you didn't have to do a rectangle. I'm going to constantly tell you guys ways to create your own designs and creations. I'm giving you ideas of things to do, and then I'm telling you in execution ways to do it that make it different and unique for yourself. So here I have a rectangle. What would you change that would be different? So it's more something that you'd want to do. Do an oval. Do a circle, right? And you can have the circle, and you can have vines going around the circle. These are some of the things you have to think about, right? So then we've got the red, the yellow, the orange. Let's do a red kind of tone. And I have this carmine color. It's a pretty red, but I'm going to add a little magenta to it. Magenta. And a little bit of this ultramarine blue. I want a bit more fall kind of purple red. There we go. And of course I'm going to add that little white just to make it more matte. Since it's kind of like a crimson red. Maybe a little bit more white. So with acrylic, gouache, similar to acrylic and oil, you lighten the value by adding white. You darken it by adding gray. And with watercolor, you lighten it by adding water. So let's think about another flower. We've got this kind of like doohickey there. I'm going to go back to my other brush. And let's make like, almost like I call them like the 1960s flower power kind of flowers. Just your basic, here we go, do a circle. And you just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little bumps. This generic 1960 kind of flowers. Now if that's too generic, make it more fancy. We've done so many flowers on this. Whatever I've done in watercolor, you can kind of create in gouache. Yep, yes you can, just because the paint's different. See, I might say that the flower is kind of meh, that I don't like that. And I'm actually adding more white. And more orange. Changing up the color a little more. So I might go in here and just go like this. Not make it like a sunflower. And then we're going to do a bunch of ditzy, I call them ditzy flowers. So I don't know if I necessarily like this 60s flower, so I'm going to change it. Look at that. I'm just going to add, extending the petal here. And that flower went from the 60s to whatever. So I changed it. I'm going to go back over another pass on this. And I'll put one up here, coming off the rectangle. So, you see how I'm doing this? And you can do another one. I'm going to make this color even lighter. When it gets later, we can go back in here once this dries and go on top and add some different values to make it look slightly more realistic. Not too much. I wanted that flat look. And I'll put one down here. Grab some of that red. And just like so. So this doesn't have this beautiful flow to it. You add a little bit of water, and then you have to do another pass on top if it's coming through. But there you go. So let's do some, what I'm talking about, ditzy flowers, right? So we can do some more yellow orange flowers. Add some orange and that white. More yellow. Just little marks like this. Simple, almost like dots. I'm doing in like 3 clusters of 3. 1, 2, 3. So have you noticed that it's mostly, also we talk about color theory a little bit. These are in the warm tones with 1 cool tone thrown in, which is the green. Now you could throw in another cool tone if you wanted to, like a blue, to make it pop. So we're just going to play around with that. You can add, magenta is kind of in between the two, but it's actually magenta, yellow, and cyan are the true primaries of light. And you mix yellow and magenta to get red, and cyan and yellow to get blue. I know. There's so much technical terms and science around all this. So I'm taking some magenta and some of this ultramarine blue. Gonna make it purple. Grab that white. And I want it a little bit more bluish purple, more white. So, these are like fall colors. Do little ditzy flowers again. I'm going to have stems connecting to them also. Maybe this grouping will be a grouping of 4. And you can have like 1, 2, 3, 4 like little flowers like that. 1, 2, 3, 4 little petals. I have them doing ditzy like that, but you can have 4 petals. 1, 2, 3, 4. Connect them in here. See how I'm going around? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is really loose and fast. And then you just kind of go back again with your other brush, which has got a nice point on it. With the green, I'm going to mix up more green again. And you can make a darker green. I have that cadmium green deep. I mixed with the light. Add a little red or orange. And it will tone it down to like an olive, a deep olive. And put the stems. Connecting. It might also help if you do the stems first too, and then put the flowers. Just connecting like that. Then we can do some bigger leaves to the bigger flowers, right? Put a little stem connecting that, kind of going here. Have a leaf coming out in the corner, another one here, and here. So you don't need to see me do every little flower. Once you get to this point, you're going to be filling up the page. I call it filling up the page, but you're just really filling up this rectangle full of color, making some of the greens a little bit darker here. Some leaves on this one. Stems. I'm just going to do a bunch of stems in a second. I'm going to show you. And then we can just add some flowers at the end. I'm going to put another leaf here. Another one here. This brush is really worn out, so I'm like struggling to make that leaf work. I'll put another one here. That's why I don't use it for watercolor anymore. It's horrible. So I'm doing that push down method. Push down, lift up. See, we're creating, it's all kind of coming out. And then I always find it fun to do some more. I'm going to put some more stems here. Like you can do some fun fall brown type stems. So I have that umber color. And the light green helps a lot too. So take burnt umber or any kind of brown that you have. I'm going to grab some yellow, mix it with it. Make a nice light brown, maybe a little orange. I love this paper palettes. They're fun. Now you can reactivate them like watercolor just by spraying water on them. So we got a nice brown going here. And add some stems kind of coming out. See, and then you could add like a little berries on this one. I didn't add the flowers on this, and I have to fix that. Could add some berries. Come over here. It's just a simple design, a simple technique with the acrylic gouache on the bottom. See, whatever I'm painting over and over, if I was doing this with regular black paint, it's going to go into the colors and make it all muddy. And we don't want that. Stems. Woo. You can have a stem kind of bending down here. And it doesn't have to be berries on all these stems. It could be flowers. Just adding more elements. You can take the white gouache and make even lighter color. See, and go in here. Go on top. By the way, you can, with the gouache, which is great, you can just go on top of the colors. See, I'm doing that once they dry, because then you can get a little bit muddy. You can't do that so much with watercolor. And then you go back. I'm going to use this brush. So now I'm going to use water to activate. See? It's activated, the orange. Add some color to finish these ones that I didn't do here. And then we could add little ditzy orange flowers on the stems here. Right on top of the yellow. Do another pass of the orange here so it really stands out. You can add a little light yellow orange for highlight on the side. So that's the difference between the watercolor and the gouache. So I have this orange color here I put down, and I would make the lighter one, like I have the yellow orange here, and then go right on top of that for a highlight. See that? Right on top. Just like one little line is good enough. Same thing the opposite, dark color. Just play with that. So now I'm going to add some color to the center of the flowers. I didn't talk about this. I'm just going to put some yellows, you know, and all the flowers that I have that are reds and purples. You don't have to use yellows. You can use orange. You can use blue. This is where you get creative, guys. You can add whatever color you feel. I'm doing yellow. And just like the orange flower, you add a little highlight on the left-hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and fill in all the areas that I want to fill in with this rectangle. And then we're going to come back and talk about some details and finish it up. So here at the end, you know, once you've finished the whole entire area that you want to paint, you just grab some light green and you can put like a vein inside the darker green leaves. Just go like right down here. And vice versa with the dark leaves. I mean, excuse me, the light leaves, you can put a dark green going into the paint. You know, it just gives it a little something, add an extra, you know, more creativity. You can keep it flat. It doesn't really matter. But I'm going to go in here and add like a little wash of light green in some areas, dark green in some other areas. And then on the flower, the red flower, I'm going to add in some light pink tones. So here I'm just, like I said, adding some light pink highlights. Just little lines coming from the center outward on the petals on the pink, well, pinkish reddish flowers. Like I said, you don't have to do this. It's just an added extra. It's kind of how I would do it. It's kind of my thing. And then you just fill in all around. You do the same thing with the sunflowers too. You can add in some orange highlights. Just go around and tweak all the little areas once you fill it all in. And that's pretty much it. If you've never tried to use acrylic gouache, there's some ways you can use it. This is one of the ways I would use it. And, you know, it's just fun to play with. And also play with different colors. Say you didn't want to do black in the background. I have another color. I have opera. Could have done something like that and put the colors on top. It could have been really fun and intense. And that's it. There wasn't much to this, was there? But it was a lot of fun playing with the colors and the techniques of gouache and see what you can come up with. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial for Floral Friday. If you have gouache, play with it. If you don't have gouache, like I said, don't spend tons of money. You just can get 3 colors. Like I said, I would get magenta, yellow. I don't have cobalt with me, but just imagine the cobalt, all right? And then you would need a black, and you would also need white. So you would need 4. And I always use a ton of white. So I don't try and get the cheapest white because you need a ton of it. All right. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Learn to play. Don't stress out. Like I said, for the gouache, it's great. You can use your old watercolor brushes. If you don't have paper palette, you can use wax paper, or what do you call it? The paper you cook cookies on. I'm sure you're gonna put that in there. I'm just not thinking right. Paper, stuff like that. Paper plates, all that. All right. Take care, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.